Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. And it is actually a warm welcome this time, because I am not wearing a jacket or a cardigan for the first time in a while. It's tied on my waist, I still have it, but you know. But yes, it's a beautiful day outside. The sun is shining, birds are singing, in the aviary ahead of me most likely. Yeah. On days like this, folks like me should be drowning in sweat. So choir is going to be a very interesting experience. No, but it's not that bad at the moment. I'm going the shady path, let's say. So yeah, but first of all, there are a few things I want to get through. I'm going to try and get the week updates through as much as possible, because there is a topic that I want to actually discuss today in Walking Wednesday, rather than specifically, you know, things that have been going on. Because most of what's been going on has also been school stuff, and, you know, that has a limit. But before any of that, I just want to once again thank everyone who took part in, I guess, the improv subathon, to phrase it in some way, for Roxanne the Rabbit. Because, yeah, like, if you missed that stream, basically what I said was, because Roxanne was... Roxanne is a new GachaTuber. I think they just started their channel like a month ago, actually, less than a month ago, only a few weeks. And in that time, they've produced 3 episodes so far, called "Falling in Love with My Best Friend," which happens to feature 2 women as the main characters. As a result, at least episode 2 have received a bunch of homophobic comments. Yeah, that's basically it. There's been a bunch of homophobic comments. In fact, there was like one positive comment that I saw, which was, fortunately, right at the top, but, you know, the others were still present, and if you go to the video, they are still there. Well, which makes me think that the other videos didn't actually get them, because yeah, because they were completely comment-free. I'm not sure if they had been deleted. One of them was only 2 hours old when I saw the channel, so I wasn't really sure. It was also a relief to see the video was only 2 hours old, because I was hoping I wasn't too late. Because basically, that was the day I was supposed to review Bunny Wunny Tales, and Ghosty sent the channel to me saying, you know, this small creator is getting abuse in the comments. Shall we send them some positivity? So I said yes, and well, the rest is history, because I thought, okay, well, they've got 8 subscribers right now. Let's try and double that to 16. They're now at 23. So, yeah, again, thank you to everyone who actually did that, and also who left a nice comment on episode 1. Once we get to episode 2, hopefully we can tip the scales, you know, once we get round to that in, like, 4 days' time, by the weekly gacha review cycle. I don't want to break the rules or anything. Speaking of the rules, just in case those like extra like subs came from specifically that video, just let you know, I did lowball the subathon on purpose. Like, I knew that at least 8 people would be watching that stream, and probably more, which meant that they were going to be able to go and engage with the channel anyway. Plus myself, that was basically 7. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing with going further than that is, in order to make that, to compensate for that, just make sure that if you did subscribe to the channel, that you're checking in regularly, just to make sure, you know, if there's a new video that uploads, go and engage with that. Because again, by the gacha review rules, I can't really engage too much. I can't give them the video watch time, really, because because gacha review is a blind reaction series, first and foremost, except for in a few circumstances, which I've talked about in the past. And yeah, I know that you lot like to watch ahead sometimes. So yeah, just be sure that the engagement doesn't stop now that the subs have been there, because if it does stop out of nowhere, then YouTube interprets that as the channel is not getting the reach that that it should, given the subscribers that it has, and therefore will stop promoting it. And this is still the early days for Rocks and Rabbits, so the early days of YouTube promotion are the ones that kind of like are occasionally the make or break ones, unless you really know what you're doing. So just be sure that that you're checking in, and that episode 3 could probably use some extra love as well, because I imagine that the reason behind the view count disparity on episodes 1 and 2 is because episode 1 is always the one that gets the most views anyway. That's natural, but episode 2 is the one with all the hate comments, and episode 3 hasn't performed as well. So again, just another further request from me. Everyone seemed to enjoy the series, so it's not like, you know, you're watching content that would bore you. I hope, at least. And yeah, I will definitely get to that eventually, within the next 2 weeks or so. So yeah, speaking of the next 2 weeks or so, I will be traveling next week, because next week is Semana Santa, or Saint Week, basically. This what the Spanish call Easter. So I will be in Madrid for that time, which probably means that, again, I'm not sure. For a couple of days, I'll be at my best friend's house, so we're not really, most likely not streaming. But then for the other days, I can't remember exactly what my parents have booked. I'm staying with them, and usually they give me like my own separate space, and I usually find the most soundproof area to not disturb them. So I'll be doing that most likely. But yeah, it's been a week of preparing for that, also trying to balance between a lot of the basically even what was actually going to happen this week. So Teacher 3 fortunately sent me a text this time, so I can refer back to them without having to listen to audio this time of every single group, which was massively helpful. But yeah, it seems like there was this week was Science Week, so some of the classes weren't around. Some of them she was doing tests for. Teacher 3 does a lot of the time will tell me to not show up if she really wants to do something specific in a lesson that she had already planned. Because a lot of the time, because basically since the return from Christmas, pretty much, the teachers have all been like juggling me differently rather than being like a fixed week, ever since Teacher 5 took over, and I specifically requested that the order change to give her a bit more time to get used to everything. That meant everything got thrown out. But now the order has been somewhat restored, thanks to Teacher 3. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Teacher 3 has a very varied set of students from various different disciplines, and obviously various different levels and age groups, which means there's a lot more usually to prepare on top of the new welding class that I was supposed to have, but actually didn't this week, because not only is it Science Week, but there's also today a student strike, which meant the students could, if they wanted to, have stayed home or have not attended in order to strike. The idea is that they're supposed to use that time to participate in strikes of some kind, but normally when it comes to Spanish huelgas, they usually amount to not attending places, more of boycotts than they are strikes, which would be fine were it not for the fact that this strike, apparently, according to the welding teacher, this strike is actually about housing prices. Now, that's a noble cause, but I question why there is a student strike about that, especially because most of the time that will involve the students staying at their houses, which they are not actively paying for. So I don't know. Again, it's kind of like what I said last week in terms of the the choir performance and that particular song that was probably not suitable for a feminist-oriented venue and meeting place, but we sang it anyway. Yeah, it's just like, well, I mean, you know, these things should exist, but possibly separately from each other, because they kind of conflict when put together, basically. Which kind of sounds a lot like a lot of my Discord friend groups, now that I'm saying that out loud. They're great separately, but I keep them separate for a reason. Yeah, so... yeah, so basically, yeah, no welding class this week. And I was worried about that because I spent a lot of this week trying also to insist to Teacher 4, the coordinator, and to the welding teacher, that they should meet up and decide, you know, whether or not I actually need like other classes. Because I also made a mistake here. So last Wednesday, or possibly Thursday, I don't remember which one, when I was in the teachers' lounge, the welding teacher that I normally have and a different welding teacher both said that they actually wanted that they'd been required to fill in like an English proficiency checklist, basically, and like rank their performances out of 10. And because I just received a new class, when they said, oh yeah, you know, tell your class about it, I assumed they meant the new class. Like, I was supposed to assess them sometime during the week, determine who out of all the 15 of them, basically, was the most proficient in English, and then try to rank them. Basically 5 to 10 was the recommendation. But yeah, as it turns out, I should have actually just read the paper, because it contained all the names of the second years that I knew their levels like the back of my hand. So once the guy explained it to me today, actually, asked me when that would be ready, and I said, well, I haven't had the chance to have a lesson with them until supposedly later today. I didn't know it was a free period back then. That was before the teacher told me. Just like, I had to do this today, basically. They said, but most of them are, you know, off doing their jobs now. It's like, oh, wait a minute, you meant the second year. Oh, so it took me less than a minute. Well, actually, no, it was more than a minute. It was more, a minute and a half, maybe. It took me a minute and a half to, you know, properly fill them in and like rank them against each other. And yeah, it was a piece of cake. So that was my bad. You know, always read what's provided to you. That's the lesson. So that was one thing. Yeah, other things is just that, you know, I had a call yesterday that kind of interrupted my time I was going to use to develop the activities for this particular group. As it turns out, I actually had some prepared already. And all the stuff that I plan to do today, actually, which is a bit more vague, is also prepared. That being said, I've been racking my brain for a solid week about making something that is Easter themed, because, to be honest, when I've looked it up, there is not much Easter vocabulary that exists, and most people already know what it is, and there's not really much of a cultural difference that I have observed that is also part of the reason why they have the language auxiliary version in the first place. You know, they want they want to it's part of a way to for them to learn a bit more about UK culture, supposedly. They got me, which is probably one of the most Spanish-coated British people to exist in the 21st century. So I don't know how that worked out for them, but you know, I've done a bit of it. But yeah, so yeah, after this I need I've got main choir rehearsal, and then a little bit of time in which I'm gonna prepare some sort of maybe Easter egg hunt type of thing, and then see how that goes. I only have one class with them, so it's a make or break type of deal, essentially. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny, like it's the thing that happens with creativity all the time. That suddenly, you're bursting with ideas constantly, but then you're given a deadline and a specific request, and then suddenly it's like, what do I do now? That happens sometimes. I wonder if that's what happens to some of the students, because I keep giving them creative assignments very quick deadlines, because it usually has to be done within the lesson or over several, depending on the groups in question. And yeah, it doesn't always turn out like it's supposed to. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, the other part is it's in English and they're not used to that, so yeah. Yeah, like I like the activity that I used for them, even though they're an older group, they actually struggled a bit more to understand, and because again, I'm not allowed to explain in English, but that was another issue. But hey, they worked it out eventually. They got to repeat, which reminds me that I actually have a class that has going to do the same activity, but there's only one class with them, and that's today. So yeah, good luck me and them. I don't know. That's that. That's I think all of the week stuff, because I guess the other things to do now is pack, make sure I've got what I need in order to travel around, and yeah, go from there. Aside from that, yeah, the thing I wanted to talk about was actually something specific that also happened on Gacha Review, and that was yesterday, because it kind of got me thinking about, again, another major aspect of Gacha creation as a whole. And I've talked about this a little bit before, when in reference to Johnny, aka Wipeout Fan 18, and it usually comes hand in hand with what we have deemed his worst works, which are the ones where I'll take for example Strike Back Sadness is the classic example now. Now that was all to do with Johnny wishing to fix the conclusion in his mind of season 4 of Miraculous Ladybug. So a little bit of a spoiler for the ending of season 4 of Miraculous Ladybug. That through a series of events in the 2-part finale, Ladybug ends up losing all the miraculous aside from her own, and obviously Cat Noir's, which she doesn't have on her person. Which also means that the Kwamis are not around for that, and there was and also shortly before that was when Alia, who also had her miraculous on constantly, not on constantly, but with her constantly at the time. She actually what was I gonna say now? Nope, forgot. Oh yeah, she actually renounced Trix, and that was a tragic moment in general, but for Johnny specifically, he was devastated. So those two things happen in quick succession. So, because in Johnny's lore, some of the disco pops in general are the children of the miraculous cast, and his particular interpretation of Gabriel is sometimes a bit more charitable than the actual figure in the show, and is inconsistently dead or alive depending on what Johnny is feeling at the time. What was it? Yeah. He actually made it so, first of all, that Strike Back took place during the time of Disco Pops, which is meant to be, years in the future when the characters are all grown up and have children. And which meant that they would not look like their teenage selves, despite the fact that Johnny did not want to redesign them, so they exactly like their teenage selves. He then excused that by them being miraculous holders, and apparently that's somehow keeping them at their physical prime, which then raised the question, because a part of Strike Back and how it goes down is that there are two identical cousins, one of which is a miraculous holder and the other one isn't, meaning that one of them would have aged, the other one would have not. And it just went from there. It was this whole series of events where it was like, my goodness. And we already criticized him beforehand for like his callous attempt at portraying teen pregnancy in order to justify how young the adult miraculous cast were whenever they showed up. Again, all to do with the designs. Where am I going with all of this? Well, basically, it hit me that Johnny had the vision to try and fix both the tricks renouncing thing, because then he said that the Disco Pops could visit the Kwamis whenever they wanted, and they're being treated well, unlike in the actual show. And he also wanted to, well, see, that was it. It was both those things. He wanted to make sure the Kwamis were accessible to have that emotional blow not be as impactful. Thus the name Strike Back Sadness. Strike Back was a character in the finale, but that's, the sadness is the important part here. And basically, he had that vision from the beginning, and didn't seem to care what lengths he would have to go to in order to justify that vision coming to life. And for a while, I thought that was almost a unique Johnny situation, because I've seen that so many times in such an obvious way on his channel that I kind of attributed it to just him. As it turns out, that was somewhat unfair, because yesterday, when we reviewed Superstar Academy episode 4, it turns out that the episode has a very similar vibe. Episode 3 of that show introduced an extended cast. Again, spoilers for Superstar Academy if you want to see it. It introduces more of a extended cast compared to just August, Ethan, their mother, Hannah, the new rival, and, the other cast were there but kind of as extras. They took on a bit more of an important role at this point. And immediately in episode 4, in fact, episode 3 was kind of obvious in that regard, because the first scene was all about introducing all of them, pretty much to themselves, but also Hannah was there, so a bit of an audience surrogate, but it definitely felt like unnatural exposition. So there was a clear agenda, I'd want to say, in mind with that. And this episode, it came to understood that basically the character of Ethan, who had shown a lot of prowess in musical production, but no inclination to specifically sing music, the idea was for him to be encouraged and to take his friend Jordan's place, who had been recently injured. Now, what is the problem? Well, several things. First of all, the festival that they were preparing for, that Jordan was supposed to sing at, consisted of an examined performance rather than like a talent show slot of some kind. Sorry, I'm just trying to calculate which way I should go. Oh, I think I've gone further than I normally do, but I'll turn this way and see where this goes. Normally I turn around when there's like a big uphill, but maybe I just didn't notice. I was too busy talking about gacha. Yeah, so basically the idea of having an understudy at all during that does not work, because you can't give someone a grade for a performance based on what their understudy does. Most of the time, they will, you would rearrange that. Okay, that's a significant downhill, so I'm going to return now. Yeah, the other issue is that there's several more, but the second issue is that the way that Jordan got injured, the worst result that he had was a broken leg. Now, I didn't mention this last week when I talked about the choir performance, or maybe I didn't, I just forgot. But one of the other performers happens to right now have a broken leg of some kind, and is still using a crutch. And she said she should be using 2 crutches, but they only gave her 1. So basically, the music teacher took great lengths, and the principal as well, to make sure that she was standing for the minimal time possible. Yes, she has to exercise the leg at some points, but normally they just like kept that for, moving between place to place and such. She's quite keen to, keep standing and whatnot, but obviously out of concern, as they said, make sure you perform sitting down, which she did. She was integral to the piece as well, because she was also playing the, I forgot what they call castañuelas. She was playing the castañuelas, whatever the name for that is. During one of the numbers, and obviously also singing at the same time. And again, she did all of that with essentially an injury of the exact same nature as Jordan's, and with potentially worse support, because they also introduced the fact there's a whole medical trainee department in this Superstar Academy. I mean, they probably would have access to greater resources and better care in order to actually train the students in the first place, or just in general look after the ones that have endured accidents, because they didn't take him to a hospital, which also means that it couldn't have been that bad. For the record, he could have died from that. They do say in the episode, the way that he fell, if he'd hit his head and not his leg or whatever, he could have died. Falling from a stage is actually more serious than people give credit for. But that's not what happened. So that's another issue. In fact, we actually even call this accidental ableism at one point, because it basically, implies that, oh yeah, you're not gonna, you can't perform unless you are of completely abled body, which has pretty bad implications, particularly. Also, bear in mind that Jordan was not playing the castañuelas, he was just singing. He was being evaluated on his vocal performance. There were some special effects involved, but I don't think during his rehearsal beforehand, that I saw at least, there was no music involved. Now, yes, I champion, singing and recording voice acting standing up because of resonance areas, and that is scientifically accurate. You do sing more efficiently when you are standing up. If that is not possible, a good academic will take that into consideration when giving a grade. So yeah, that was issue number 2. Issue number 3 is probably the most serious one, and that was that the entire friend group seemed to be convinced that Ethan, who he established had not sung since the 8th grade, should be the one to take his place, even though the show revolved around the idea that there was a new singer who I think was yet to perform, or yet to rehearse. She just auditioned, and her audition blew everyone away, and she's been like deemed as like the next big thing. It's kind of like, imagine if in Victorious, how like, in fact, the pilot episode of Victorious was about how Trina was unable to sing, and at the time, and Tori, who had rehearsed the song with her, performed it perfectly and then got into Hollywood Arts. It's kind of like, imagine if that happened, but they didn't use Tori at any other point. Like, they were trying, like the show was about building her up as, you know, the main attraction, you know, the person's gonna make it shine and yada yada. And if they hadn't done, they were very persistent about like making sure to push Tori particularly, and by extension Victoria Justice, into the spotlight. It would have been extremely counterintuitive for them not to have done that. And the same applies here. If Hannah is the next, or even applies to like My Passion, if Baby never did anything, like for Baby it might have been like her issues of confidence, but from what we've seen of Hannah's personality, she doesn't have that issue. She seems to be very like jovial and optimistic, and also have a genuine passion for singing, a passion which she seemed to have renounced in favor of humoring the friends, because apparently they said, oh yeah, wouldn't it be better to have like a male backup singer? Now, my knowledge of music production comes into play. To change the key of a song, and therefore to potentially help a female singer replace a male one, takes 2 buttons, maybe 3, in a free editing software. So you can imagine, for people who would use something more complex, i.e., I don't know, people who are in an academy where they're studying this type of thing, they would know that. In fact, Ethan, who produces songs professionally for his superstar younger sister, would have known that you can change the key of a song criminally easily. Now, maybe that was because I'm not sure if Silmations and the person who does the character arcs, I've forgotten their name now. There were 2 people involved in this. I'm not sure if either of them knew about that. That also does, you know, come with the risk of, if you plan to write about a topic that you don't know much about, you've got to make sure that you fact check yourself, you know. So that was Hannah's feeble excuse for why she couldn't take over, and why Ethan would have the same. And also, one thing I didn't mention in the review, but I'll mention now. I actually got asked in university sometimes to change the key of certain songs, which again took 2 buttons, and that was because specifically a male performer wanted a lower version of a song because his range did not extend that high. I will say this, particularly when it comes to male singers, or singers that have been assigned male at birth and have gone through male puberty, it is a very common issue that once your voice deepens, it doesn't open up, and that range has to be retrained. Case in point, me. If you desire to torment yourselves one day, go back and check my songs from 2015 or songs from 2016 playlist, and you can see for yourselves that from all of 2015 to the early 2016, I basically had 0 vocal range, and that was something that was very evident, you know. In fact, I remember it being a source of criticism at one point, and the reason that I like to record songs whenever there was no one around in the house, because I also was also like, yes, I'm aware that it does not sound good. I cannot make it sound good. Why did I not use autotune? Because I knew from Out on Blade videos that doing autotune for limited vocal range sounds dreadful, and also because I knew that someday I want to perform these songs live, and I didn't want to, you know, give people false expectations. Which, yeah, actually did happen in 2018. I did my my first and as of only live concert featuring some parodies that I had written over the years, including one from 2015 and one from 2012 as well, before my voice broke, but you know, whatever. And again, night and day difference. So that kind of thing takes time, which means that, you know, if Ethan has not been training his voice, or has not been singing in general, which is exactly what he said in the episode, that would definitely manifest, and his vocal range would be extremely limited in comparison to Jordan, who we know because of the song that he rehearsed was able to accomplish quite a lot in terms of vocal range, and yeah, like even like where he starts off like ooh do 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 do, like even that, some people have to go like do 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 do, like that was me in 2015. In fact, even today in the choir, because we started weekly rehearsals again, I forgot to mention that because we're doing new songs. One of the new songs I was rehearsing with, a tenor today, because the other two, I guess, forgot, or maybe one of them might be on strike. And yeah, like the debate was whether or not to actually do the same as what the director's calling the baritones, but actually the basses, which have been like much further down. And while I'm fine with that, the other guy actually, as he gets teased sometimes by some of the baritones in quotes. About whenever he tries to go as low as he can, but obviously, but to some degree, because he's quite young, he's not there yet. So yeah, basically puberty is going to benefit him rather than hinder me. Because remember, that was the whole reason I said I used to hate my voice, was tied to this idea. It made singing much less fun for me. But because I liked it so much, I liked writing songs, I kept it up in the hopes that it would someday return, and it did. But yeah, Ethan seemed to have funneled his music passion into production, which is a separate skill that is not interchangeable with vocals. In fact, to compare this to the Music Freaks, you would see, imagine if Sean from Music Freaks decided to drop a diegetic song, it wouldn't make sense for its character. You did a non-diegetic one with Daisy that one time, and that was fine, because that was, again, you expect that from a musical, like we understand where that comes from. But yeah, I compare lots of Music Freaks as well, because like Ghosty pointed out that the Music Freaks particularly has two in like very functional friend group. Well, I was one dysfunctional, but one that is still closely knit, and one that is a functional friend group. Because I mean, if that show didn't have efficient friend groups, it would not have worked. Because the main struggle was about Jake's loyalty and pressure from his existing friend group versus his passion and general gradually earned acceptance from the music club at large, including another person who was not confident in singing, but because of trauma, and the idea of her resorting to him of all people to take her place, even though she could very easily fill in, was a subject of curiosity, because again, there was a history there. Now we don't know, maybe there is some, in the music number that we got in the episode, which by the way, first non-diegetic musical number in the series, in Superstar Academy, that is. In the music number we got, we did see for a brief second that Ethan did have stage fright. So again, that could have been part of the reason, or the reason. But yeah, it was almost missing. Also because the song was apparently changed last minute. According to Silmations in the live chat, they actually clarified that yeah, there was a different song that sounded like it was going to be a lot better, called Childhood Dreams, about Ethan's childhood, and then it was swapped out for one that barely had anything to do with anything, Ring the Drums of Love, basically, which implies something between Ethan and Jordan, but that's it. That's all it serves. And it wasn't about his dilemma, which is the name of the episode. And, but yeah, back to the friend group. The friend group in this one, they're so insistent, they even, think of blackmailing him in order to accept And they just generally don't seem to like have the idea of like, oh yeah, one of them suggested Hannah at one point, but then Hannah shut that down, so she wasn't helpful either. The one person who was somewhat exempt from that for a while was Rose. For some reason, I forget her name. She's the main character. I was barely involved in this. But yeah, she didn't do much until the end, where she was like the final person who actively convinced him. Like, the friends tracked him down towards this rooftop dilemma type of thing. And then it was like, oh yeah, you know, I guess now you've convinced me, I'll sing. They thought it was going to do something else, which was you know, far more dangerous. And I can see the assumption as to why. BB was kind of like, had a few issues with that, the idea of that. Also where they phrased it, about how he was finding too sweet to consider that, which is, you know, not a good image for people struggling with those thoughts. Not a good implication there about like what their personalities were assumed to be like from that episode. But yeah, like the friend group, essentially it was a whole, it was like character assassination for part of the main characters, but mainly the extended cast that they had just set up in the previous episode. And all of those issues that I just mentioned for the past 20 minutes, all of that was just so we could get a scene with Ethan debating whether or not he should sing. Now again, this can work. You know, the idea of like a person being encouraged to sing. Again, it happened in the Music Freaks. That was, you know, Jake and Haley eventually, you know, performed a duet. And Jake was insistent on doing so. Which, you know, bear in mind that almost like negated his entire reason for being in the music club in the first place. But hey, they were able to find a way that worked out. They wrote an original song that would also work for those keys, and Sean was able to, you know, as the producer that he is, was able to make that work with their difference in vocal ranges. Yeah. So again, that plot can be done correctly. The way that I would have done it is, honestly, again, do what the Music Freaks did, not exactly, but take more inspiration from that in the sense of, you know, make it so that show Ethan's lack of confidence. Don't change the song halfway through. Maybe point out that somebody remembers him singing rather than just him being the random first person they talked about. It's like, oh yeah, you produce music, you can obviously sing, right? That's how that works. Also, potentially don't use the festival as an excuse for it. Because, again, the way that they phrase the festival in that very episode implies that, you know, again, it's not examining the way that they're thinking of. If it was a talent show slot that's, you know, they wanted someone to, you know, help step in, then so be it. You know, potentially say that Jordan was bedridden rather than just having a broken leg, because people move around with those all the time. You know, maybe he broke something else and is therefore bound to, well, he'd be in a hospital at that point. He wouldn't be inside the medical department of the school. So I guess that whole plot line was also pointless. Or maybe even if you wanted to go like much darker, say that, you know, he's potentially is unconscious or in a coma or something, and maybe Ethan himself maybe was working on the song with Jordan and is debating for himself, like his own character choice, whether or not he should come out of retirement of singing per se and attempt it himself. Make it his decision rather than the friends pushing him to do so, and maybe that could work. But even that, you know, I just came up with that in like what, a minute or something, me talking about it. Like, even that's not perfect, but it's still better than essentially kind of like ruining nearly everything that you set up in your entire show up until that point. Johnny's examples of coming up with ideas and then executing them, no matter what the cost in terms of build-up, is normally contained to just the episodes in question. That's why he deletes a lot of them, not because we tell him to, but he decides to, and you know, they're never seen again, and then he either writes around them or he carries on as if they never actually happened. I don't think Superstar Academy can do that. I mean, obviously the episodes that have been aired for some time, but, you know, pretending for a second that this was like brand new. I wasn't 2 years old. It would still be like, it would still be a difficult task to try to, you know, compartmentalize all of that and move forward and try to fix all the damage that was done. Because the build-up is one thing. Then you have to deal with the aftermath. Then you have to deal with, like, what can you do to fix that afterwards? And I guess that's why Johnny deletes that stuff, because he usually, you know, he usually pretends that it's not a thing, so I don't have to deal with that. That's one way of handling it. I wouldn't suggest that for Superstar Academy. I never, ever say that anyone should delete their videos, because most of the time we're talking about a person's progress, and in terms of, and they're going to make mistakes regardless. Like, you know, I have been praising Music Freaks a lot in this video, but I have harped on it relentlessly in other videos. That's just the way that it goes. But it did get me thinking about this idea that so many GachaTubers, if I think about like other stories as well, I can imagine now that, yeah, it's not just a unique thing to Johnny. Silmations and whoever wrote the character, whoever like helped the character arc for that episode, I forgot their name, also seem to have that issue. I mean, yeah, it is. But and then yeah, like now I'm gonna imagine that, yeah, maybe there are certain moments in other gacha videos where it's like, well, how do we get to this point? The answer is most likely because the creator wanted to do something and didn't think of how to get there. And I said before, in a lot of my stories, I have a beginning and an end in mind and work out the middle. That's not so much true for gacha, actually, because most of the time I'm doing, you know, episode by episode, or, you know, like serialized stuff, but, you know, trying to build in beginnings and ends contained to themselves. So the middle of the, so it's always the middle of the story I'm working on to some degree. But yeah, for books like Erasmus the Elf, that was the thing. I had the beginning, the end in mind. I worked out the middle as I went along. Now that doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me. If anything, Erasmus the Elf itself is actually about, well, when I was editing it back in the day, I found out that, yeah, it was, like, yes, it was about someone who wanted to go on an adventure and was able to do so and change the world, but at what cost? You know, like, I think there was something like 103 people died as a result of, you know, of the direct actions of the main character alone. Like, yes, there was in the middle of essentially like several turf wars between, you know, different kingdoms and whatnot. So there was going to happen regardless, but it did, like, wear my mind as like some of the only things that I added when I went back and edited the book before publishing it, like 5 years after I've written it, were those moments where it was like, oh wow, this is this is the end result, huh? This is like this is the cost that we have left behind. So yeah, it's if you think about it, yeah, it's it feels like that's exactly what happened to all the GachaTubers, but in real life. Like, yeah, now that I thought about that, I'm going to look at a lot of gacha videos differently. I'm gonna be thinking about, okay, well, why? Well, if this scene was so important, how could we have gotten there I do that sometimes. You know, how could we have gotten here instead if we wanted to get to this point? But I never really like properly thought like, oh yeah, there's like a common element. But yeah, I'm gonna be definitely thinking about, okay, well, if something stands out as like an obvious thing of like, okay, it's like an obvious like maybe like shipping moment between two characters, or like a big and powerful scene as a result of like big other stuff that have gone on. Like what could you do? And then think about like people who have you know, pulled that off, whether it's Rosie Closey, or if I want to boost my own ego myself with Meteor God Season 2 and the big Phoenix speech that I had prepared years in advance, and all the revelations which were sprinkled out throughout the series meticulously, so you actually be able to, you know, pick them up or like remember where they were from, or like have like a huge surprise reveal of like how everything got pulled together. Like, yeah. Whichever one it might be. But yeah, it's just another avenue now where I'm thinking like, that could even be like a separate video actually, like the one that like one of the biggest errors most GachaTubers make that they don't realize. That's a good title for a video as well. I don't know if it'll be this video that's the title of that. I might make that another tutorial if I ever go back to making those like I did 2 years ago. So, who knows at this point? For now, I guess I have to speculate and get back to focus on that. So, this is me done for now, and I'm going to focus my brain power on trying to come up with activity that symbolizes Easter. So please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe to us already. On that note, until next time, farewell.